Welcome back. And of course, it's that time of the day of my Thursday morning show where we jump onto that taxi and take that ride through Mzansi to be enticed into better spaces and places, but also look at retrospection and reflection on the types of things we learn from the narrative of the anthology. And a very amazing one, I must say, throughout this journey that we've been penning out for such a long time. It's been so phenomenal, every single week that we speak, there's something that we're learning from this anthology. And no better person to chat to me on the line this morning. I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. She's an absolutely bubbly, phenomenal person, is Shahista Thokan. And of course, one of the editors of this particular anthology. So she's, put a lot into this particular anthology with Shakira, and they've done a splendid job about it, I must tell you. Zaida has done the editing as well. Shaista has always had an immense passion for people, and I see that by interacting with her. She's the founder of Silver Lining Workshop Facilitation and an NLP transformational coach. After the completion of her commerce degree, Shaista then found her true calling, which was education, where she spent almost a decade transforming from within herself and embracing experiences. Shasta has written articles for various publications and is a columnist for the local newspaper. She's a woman with great diversity and is most passionate about contributing towards the upliftment of communities. And I think that's very important. She's also supports people's life journeys. And I must tell you, from interacting with her, she's a bubbly, phenomenal person that I think when you meet her, the kind of aura and the karma that she gives out is so positive that she can't help you but move into a better mindset than what you were before. So, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. A very warm welcome to the show this morning. It's been such an honor to have one of our, should you say, main givers to this little taxi ride through Mzansi joining us on air.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah so much for inviting us. Salam Media has really been amazing through this journey. And yes, one of the publishers, Alhamdulillah, what an accomplishment for me, but also for all our authors. It's been amazing.
That is so cool. I see Josh is also on the line. Hi, Josh. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm good, thanks.
That's good, Josh. Let me just tell you a little bit about Josh. Josh is young. He's 21 years old, a law undergraduate, an aspiring writer from KZN. And one thing that I found interesting about him is he has interest in creating differences in people's lives. And he matriculated in 2019 and subsequently spent a year training in ontolog ministry. I'm getting very tongue-tied there. But anyway, Joshua, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us today. We look forward to chatting to you about your version. But coming back to you, Shahista, since we did start off with you, talk to us a little bit. You're such a, as I said, the person that is a publisher, I think, is an absolutely amazing thing that has happened to you, because what you've done for Taxi Through Mzansi, through communities, and you talk about upliftment, by just going through these synopsises on each story, it's, I think, enticed our viewers in so many different directions to look at these relative topics that we bring to the fore and get them to retrospect on it. But before we get into that, give us a little bit more insight to the Shahista Thokan that I know and that everybody else doesn't.
So I'm a serial entrepreneur, Nafeesa. I love to go into different projects and challenge myself, because I believe we're all very unique and we've been given a lot of skill and things. So I try as much as possible to every year take on something new. And during COVID, I was published for the very first time. And that excited me tremendously, because being an NLP coach, I've always been with people, being an educator, I've always been in the classroom. So a lot of vocal and public speaking type of things, but never the written published type of scenario where it was an actual story in an actual book. So always just blogs and magazines and newspapers, which are not in itself a very large, a description of writing. So when I got into writing for COVID with lockdown behind the mask, came 2021, I decided, challenge myself further. And together with my friend, Shakira Rahiman, we contributed different aspects of our strengths towards putting and compiling a new anthology, giving new people a chance to speak their voice in words, have it written, have it edited, and have it published, which is phenomenal. I mean, I'm telling you, Shahista Thokan is a brand that has been built and built and rebuilt. But for this, where I could give a part of myself to other people in such a big form, where a book is on a shelf and one day, hopefully, in many more shelves across the country, that is really something I am going to be so proud of, and I'm going to take lots of du'as, because our authors have been so amazing and so grateful and so supportive. I mean, to trust two novice publishers with their stories. And I think, as I am finding myself along my journey, and I'm keeping myself busy in the sense that COVID has had a knock-on immense amount of business and entrepreneurship. Yes. So redeveloping myself and rediscovering what I can do, there's a lot still to come, I think.
We can look forward to that, because trust me, Taxi Through Mzansi is very close to our hearts here for one reason. It's so pertinent to everyday life and the things people experience and the challenges they face. But it also gives them, through a light-hearted version of narrative, on how they can actually entice themselves into a better mindset and into a better quality of life, and how to uplift and change people's lives for the better. And I think that's the whole idea about it. And there's nothing better than narrative. I mean, sometimes, you could be watching a show and get enticed, but there's nothing like narrative. You're experiencing that journey, you feeling it.
You hit the nail on the head there, Nafeesa, and you've got the actual point that we were trying to make. So my personality. I am loud, I'm talkative, I'm humorous, and I wanted, being an avid reader of reading international publications, I wanted our local lacquer people to contribute their stories, because let me tell you, we have so much of talent in the country, but so few opportunities. And when this came about, I said, I want to make it with our own people, our different communities. There's so many different voices. And when we looked at Taxi Through Mzansi, the initial brief was your Mzansi experience of being a South African. But now we're thinking, well, if it's a lot of Indianness that came through, our next one, which is going to be the second anthology, could be basically Kapanars, the Malay stories. Yes. So there's so many diverse communities in South Africa that we are yet to tap into. So this particular anthology is just a tip of the iceberg, the volume 1 of many more to come. And I feel like people are going to get more and more excited, because their stories matter. Their lessons in life can be shared with future generations. It's a very historical book for me, because we get to voice an air, whether it was a taste of apartheid or a status taste or whatever it was, that we get to communicate that as South Africans.
That is so true. We're going to hold that thought, because there's something important I'd like to ask you after that. Let's go to Joshua. Joshua, your synopsis has rambling glimpses in a piece that grapples with questions of culture, identity, and the legacies of colonialism and apartheid. Talk us through. Firstly, I want to congratulate you being a 21-year-old and getting enticed into narrative. We've got to give you a little bit of a hand there, because it's phenomenal to see that a person like yourself has gone into the space where you've realized the importance of narrative. And a lot of people, have this habit of not understanding how important narrative really is and what narrative does, and the types of experiences and journeys it pens out. And I think that's important. So Joshua, tell us a little bit about yourself. Joshua, are you there?
Did Joshua get camera shy, Nafeesa?
There we go, Joshua. I thought did you hear for a minute? I thought Shahista said you got camera shy. I was a bit scared there, because I thought maybe you wanted to go audio on us. Firstly, as I said, I don't know if you heard me when I just introduced you about your synopsis, is saying it's so phenomenal to see a 21-year-old get enticed into narrative and creating, should we say, important aspects of the types of culture and identities that we face through your story. So first, tell us a little bit about yourself. We're really interested in wanting to get to know a little bit more about Joshua Govender.
Okay, firstly, hi everyone. Thanks for having me on the show. Yes, like you said earlier, right now I'm pursuing my law degree via correspondence, and I'm 21 years old, as you said. And yes, I've always been interested in literature and books and
Joshua,
reading and writing and so on. So
sorry, we
when I
seem to
saw
be
the
having a bad
advertisement,
signal on your side.
immediately was drawn towards it, in particular because it appealed to the idea of South Africa. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Joshua, we seem to be having a problem with your signal. Is it possible for us to just retry that? Okay, we'll go
Okay.
back to Shaista. We're gonna try out again soon, Joshua. We're just gonna try and reconnect with you. Okay. Shaista, coming back to you, we seem to be having a little bit of a bad signal there from Joshua's side. The important aspect it was going to bring up as far as the synopsis goes is it's so interesting because the way I see the end of the synopsis is a unison. It's meant to bring South Africans together, making us understand the diversity of each community, but yet through the stories that we write, we start understanding each other and how we work and how we think and how each culture can integrate and come together. And I think that's also one important aspect of this particular synopsis.
I
And
think
of
the
course, the
most
anthology.
important thing to understand is you can be two individuals brought up by the same parents, living in the same house, going to the same school, but experience life completely differently. And that's why these stories were so amazing, is because people shared their personal experiences, some of it fiction, some non-fiction, and you'll see mine is fiction. And it's because of our social conditioning and the way we experience through those type of lenses that it gave a story and gave substance to this book and to this anthology. Whereas if you're writing, straight out of the idea of writing a dramatic story, it's not really personal. You don't feel it when you're reading the book. But this particular anthology is very heartfelt, whether it's humor, anger, fear, whatever was portrayed from those stories. It really came through and it hit home because we knew about it growing up as South Africans and we've experienced it. So that was really interesting for me.
Right. Joshua, back to you. Are you back on the line there? Joshua, can you hear me now? No. We seem to be having a signal problem with Joshua there. I'm hoping we can get him on the line at some point. Shaista, let's go back to you. Talk us through your story. What enticed you to write your piece, and what sort of message did you want people to get out of your synopsis?
So like any entrepreneur, you're always the first to purchase your product. You're always the first to, experience the process. So when I wrote the story, it was to actually have the first story in the book so that there is something to this anthology for me in a personal sense to contribute to.
Right.
And my story was not an adult-based story, but it was more along the lines of young adult meeting adult. It's because of growing up in KwaZulu-Natal. I'll tell you from a personal experience, I was in a very diverse community, whether it was class, income distribution or whatever it was. I experienced a lot of different culture. And then when I got married into Gauteng, which is very different from KZN, let me just tell you. And then to a town like Lenasia, which is very Indian based, very also religious cults are very distributed quite separately. Whereas in
Right.
Natal, in Pietermaritzburg, where I grew up, we were surrounded by diversity. There was no communities that belonged to each area. So coming here, I found that to be quite a challenge. So in my story, I actually chatted about one of the experiences when I was younger in high school, and getting to know a couple that was cross religion, dating, and then navigating a future for themselves, which was really taboo in society, because you must
Yes.
remember, not only is it interfaith, it's also a class, it's wealth, it's how will you overcome those barriers. So the challenge in writing the story was really not to offend anyone, but to bring to light that it takes guts to
Mm.
actually challenge these societal stigmas and taboos and stereotypes that we've grown up with. But then when you experience it from a KZN point of view, it's normal. When you come from a Gauteng point of view, many people have not heard of things like this. So I really just wanted to put that out there as my South African experience, to say every province also
Mm.
in South Africa is got this huge diversity of divide, has got a very different perception of how they were socially conditioned. So yeah, that was my contribution.
Definitely a very interesting one. Would you say that it's important that we as South Africans need to start understanding each other? And this is what is going to help us as is reading through these anthologies and getting a better understanding of each one, as I said before. But also, I think importantly, there was a lot of subjects that were tapped into, which we would say in inverted commas are regarded in society and community as taboo. And I think that should make us think that those particular issues are not going to go away. It's having to face it head on and finding the necessary apt solutions that will work to uplift and empower each community that's facing that particular, should we say again, taboo challenge.
So I'm going to answer as a life coach here, purely from my training and the way I think. I think we need to um, tap in more to our humanness with people, not necessarily classing them into race groups or cultural divide or religion sometimes. I know it's not a very orthodox way of thinking, and it is challenging, but these things are happening around us. We need to embrace it with the fact of being open-minded and giving the correct education. If you're rearing children, you need to grow them up with certain values, certain morals, certain habits that are going to help them be progressive in life. If you're going to put down barriers, if you're going to put them in cages and give them a lot of restrictions, I think what I've seen and what I've been exposed to as a life coach is a lot of rebellion and a lot
Mm.
of destruction, a lot of conflict. So first, let's start with just being human, being kind, and knowing that we are not here to judge anyone. We need to actually look in the mirrors. We need to see things from different perspectives. We need to embrace different opinions, and we need to respect people in order to get respect. And I think from that point of view, when we look around us and we see things that are strange because we grew up differently, and as we said, that are taboo, or we don't necessarily accept what we're seeing, we need to realize that maybe it's a train of thought we need to grow and change with, because that's the way the world is moving towards: more humanity, more mindfulness, more self-awareness, and just acceptance of others for who they want to be, and no judgment, really. And I think life can be really peaceful, and contentment can be found when we start looking within ourselves instead of out of ourselves.
Yeah, so agree with you. Then it's also about tapping into the situations that we face from yesteryear. There's a lot of things that get moved from generation to generation, and not realizing that there's certain issues from those generations. And we spoke to the authors last week, and it was very interesting because we spoke about the yesteryear, and I think that the general consensus that we came to after that was the fact that we can learn a lot of things from yesteryear, where people were connected, people would interact all the time, there was a different vibe there. Taking that communication aspect and putting it into today's world, but also having to understand that the type of lifestyle and the generation has changed. So it's having to be adaptable, not forgetting those values and those morals that were inculcated by the elders then, but also giving a better understanding towards each other. Because when I look at communities on the whole, there's some people that are still stuck in that old norm where they feel that's just the way it's done and that's the way it was done and that's how it's going to be done. And that's where you find that the conflict issues come into place, is because there's no understanding given to the types of situations you're in, and also the respect to say that she or he is facing that type of situation, or she or he can't see me all the time due to, in the days gone by, life was different. People had different things. Nowadays, life has become very demanding. People's lifestyles have become very demanding. So the generations have changed. So it's bringing the yesteryear into today and changing it into something better and adaptable that works for both.
That's quite a loaded conversation that we can go on about, but I'll just address one aspect, and it's the generational gap. And that exists purely because of lack of communication. And if
For
we look
sure.
at the generations and the eras, and I'm not saying the traditional ways are wrong in any sense of the word. I loved the way I was brought up. I was given restrictions, and I think with my type of personality, I was the one that needed those restrictions and maybe
Right.
guidelines and boundaries, and that worked for me. However, now I'm 40 and I have 4 teenage sons, and I realize, and in order to communicate and get through to them, I need to maybe communicate more in getting a sense of how they feel about things. The conversation starters that I need to discuss with them is more negotiating and less real rules that are put into place. And of course, as a parent, there are going to be boundaries, there are going to be repercussions of bad behavior. But I think with the millennials, it's more a different way of parenting them as before. They are exposed to far more avenues of how they communicate, as to when we would sit across each other on a dinner table and have a conversation with our parents, and that would be it. Now we on WhatsApp with our children. Sometimes they may be in the next room. So do you see how the movement forward in terms of creating less of a generational gap is to actually educate ourselves as adults now, parenting children to come, and then their legacy and their progeny yet to come is going to be a different style. So it's learning along the way of the lessons of how things change and progress, and human beings as such will need to then change and progress their style of communicating, their ways of expressing, values, morals, and sometimes, as I said, not negotiating, but compromising on what we thought was the way to do things and learn new ways to do it.
I so agree with you, and I like the word compromise, because a lot of times there's those ways where people just like want to enforce it. It's about sitting together, trying to compromise, and finding common ground, and moving yourself forward through that common ground.
Yes, definitely. I develop youth for a living. I'm a coach, as I said, and majority of the counseling and the parenting plans that I put into place with the couples that come to me for their children is the idea that we need to meet them halfway. We need to come on board, teach them how to grow in this world. It's very challenging for them. This anthology has also taught us that there are diverse ways of earning an income, and one of them is through writing stories. And who would have thought that in the past people were so scared to express their stories or tell their truths on how they were brought up or in their marriages? And if you look at our anthology, it brings all these issues, all these challenges, all these obstacles to the table, to the forefront. It's a conversation starter. It's going to spark a lot of ripple effects, which is great because we want people to get their voices heard.
Most definitely, and especially when it comes to many and issues like GBV, gender-based violence, a lot of the challenges like drug addiction, substance abuse addiction, should we say, people being in serious having mental issues. So I think we've tapped on a lot of those types of things as well in the anthology, making people understand that it's okay to go through that. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. There's times maybe where people falter, or you come across, the wrong person and they enticed you into that, and you faltered. But it's about finding that strength again and finding those support structures. And I think this is what the important thing about this anthology is as well. It makes you understand that whatever issue or challenge that you're facing, you're not alone. And many a times people have this mindset where, they sit about and they think, all right, I'm having this particular challenge, but I'm struggling with it all alone. When there's so many others that are going through exactly the same situation that you or me could possibly be encountering. So it's about creating those support structures and building up those relationships together to be able to have better communities out there.
I'm going to speak on behalf of Joshua because everything you just said is very relevant to his story of resilience.
Yes, exactly.
Joshua has multiple sclerosis. He has been challenged physically his whole life. And when this ad went out, he was the youngest entrant. His story was very heartfelt. It was his challenge as a Tamil-speaking boy in Afrikaans medium school.
Right.
And he spoke about having to learn a new language, whereas at home, it was a particular mother tongue. And then he spoke about his physical challenge as well. And I think Rambling Glimpses it touches the heart so much that we could not just leave it out.
Yeah, I'm actually just disappointed that we can't seem to get him on the line because his story is so intense that, it gets you thinking in so many directions about the type of challenge he faced. And yet he's bringing it to the fore so people can understand better what it is about and how we can deal with it going forward by trying to help people like him. But, to think that he's had this particular setback with multiple sclerosis, it hasn't stopped him. And that's what I was actually wanting to tell him on air how proud I am of him that has not stopped him from actually achieving the goals that he wants in his life. I mean, at 21 years of age, to be able to have that law degree and then still have time to be an avid author and writing this very serious, should we say, synopsis that I've read has gotten me thinking of how phenomenal a person he really is, because he hasn't actually let these things set him back, but he's told himself that he's going to catapult himself forward. And I think this is something that a lot of us can learn from.
Definitely, Nafeesa. I think the one obstacle in everyone's mind, in everyone's way to achieve what they want is self-pity. If we have to look at our challenges, if we have to look at our restrictions, be it physical, financial, or whatever, we get stopped in our tracks from doing a lot of things, pursuing a lot of dreams, even though the visions are there. And one of the things I help people is to break these limiting beliefs about themselves. If we look at Joshua, for example, he took to the pen and his voice was so powerful. So wherever we may lack or have those weaknesses, we make up really in our other strengths. And as I said, we are so blessed by our Creator to have so many unique talents and abilities. So focus on the ones that are truly belonging to you, that make you who you are, a very personal way, and stop focusing on the things that you can't do or necessarily the weaknesses that are stopping you and challenging you. And of course, I know health is a serious aspect that it really does cripple us. I mean, our bodies betray us as we age as well. But I think sometimes our mental focus needs to shift in order for us to progress, in order for us to find happiness. Because if we constantly compare, we're looking at lives that we don't necessarily know. We're looking at an external aesthetic, and not really getting to know people's real challenges, life challenges. And this anthology is those raw experiences, those things that people didn't necessarily want to talk about, that they did. And I'm very grateful to our authors for actually speaking about those.
I'm very proud of Joshua. He's taught us one thing, and it's such a normal quote that goes around, is that the pen is mightier than the sword. He's really definitely taken that aspect and put it into this thing, because when I read it, I was so blown away by this little story that meant so much.
Yeah.
he's taught us to think further than, out of that box, let's put it that way, to say that look at the type of situations that I faced and other South Africans are facing, but irrespective, there's always that positive, that silver lining that we need to look at. And that hurdle that we need to overcome takes a lot of perseverance. And I think he's taught us that. He's taught us that, we've come from a painful situation. He says, he talks about the painful history and stuff. But irrespective of all those things, he's taught us one thing, that even if you have multiple sclerosis, look at the type of achievements he has, and the accolades that he has to his name, which I think is absolutely phenomenal. So I'm going to give him a hand clap, because really, honestly, he deserves it.
Standing
Really,
ovation.
it's a pity, as I said, that we can't get to chat to him. And I'm hoping that maybe on next week's show, I really want to get into the really deep inside essence of Joshua Govender, because that's exactly what he is. He's one of those phenomenal authors that have come out there to be not to shy, but to turn out and say, look, here's a topic and here's a subject that many people don't want to face. I mean, last week I spoke to a lady who was suffering from psoriasis, and she explained to the condition to us and said what it had done for her, but she opened up a support structure. Likewise, Josh was doing the same through his narrative. He's creating a support structure to say that people, through like myself and others that are going through these types of situations, through this narrative, you're going to get enticed to ask yourself, firstly, how to change your mindset, and secondly, how to face that and find the necessary solutions to overcome these challenges.
That's just it. I believe that every author that has written is an advocate for a certain lesson that they've learned, or a certain story that they've written about. So when Joshua advocates this, I know at the launch, my 4 teenage sons were there, and when Joshua stood up to talk about his story, he was so well spoken and he was so confident, and he had such passion when he spoke about this project, about writing, about seeing himself being published, and he never thought would happen, a dream visualized that actually had come true. That was inspirational, and that's why I use the word advocate, because in each story, one reader is going to take one particular author that they're going to resonate with, and they're going to use as a role model and give them hope, or give them courage, or even give them the future of where they are right now, to say, look, there's always a silver lining. And that's why that's the name of my business, Nafeesa, as you know, is because I do feel in every scenario in life, God doesn't burden us more than we can handle, but also we need to be a bit more tenacious, and we need to be a bit more hopeful that things will get better. This too shall pass.
Yeah, that's true. But it's people like yourselves that give us that hope. We're going to go for a quick break. We'll be back with you in a minute.
Penny Appeal's Education First campaign helps children to get access to quality education.
I'm 14 years old. When I grow up, I'd like to be a scientist.
We believe every child belongs at school,
And we want education, a better education.
learning and dreaming their way to a better future. With your help, we can provide classrooms, desks, stationery packs, and school shoes. Help make these dreams a reality. Visit www.pennyappeal.org.za or call 031 1100 573. Penny Appeal. Small change, big difference.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath her serene sunsets and explore wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations, call now on 042-203-1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
Your act of love gives hope. Islamic Relief supports orphans and vulnerable children in 28 countries with food, education, and medical care. There are more than 150 million orphans in the world. You can give hope to one. Sponsor an orphan today. Go to www.islamic-relief.org.za.
What makes Randery Jewelers the optimum place for your memorable gift? Is it our range of exclusive, high-end, luxurious jewellery? Or is it our master craftsmanship of all your bespoke jewellery needs? We believe it's because at Randery Jewelers, we know just how to make your special moments last forever. Whether it's for a wedding, anniversary, or just a simple gift to show your love, trust Randery Jewelers to make it special. www.randeryjewelers.com. Make your moments last forever with Randery Jewelers, the family name you can trust.
Rejuvenating media day by day. This is Salam Media.
One this Thursday morning. We're still in conversation with Shahista Thokan from the anthology Taxi Through Mzansi. Shahista, it's been a phenomenal discussion with you. I think you've got us thinking in so many directions, and that's what has happened every single week without fail. We look forward to the segment because it gets us going in a very different direction. And of course, no better way than through narrative. So, Anna, thank you so much for joining me. But before we go, I just wanted you to leave us with the pertinent message that you think our viewers need to know this morning.
So I think the intention behind Taxi Through Mzansi as a book was to be a conversation starter. And I think, we spend purchasing literary books and things for our kids. But this is a little bit of history that if people purchase the book, they will realize that this book can be passed down further because it's got such personal narratives and stories. And as we went through the synopsis each show, we realized how different and how, diverse the stories and the people are that have written in this book. So a little message is to embrace the local communities, to support the local businesses, to purchase the local publishers and authors, because really there's a lot of love. It is a labor of love. There's a lot of hard work that goes into it, hoping that our voices will resonate with people in our own communities, in our own areas. And I think that's very important. We've got retailers, countrywide. We're on Amazon. It's really accessible to the general public, but we just need the support of our communities for you to benefit from these stories, for you to find your voice, to pen your thoughts, and hopefully be published one day. And I think that would be my parting note is, support the people that are around you, support the people that you know, support the people that you can change lives through and with your spend, and not necessarily just being a follower and like a sheep following the crowd of what's out there Be different, challenge yourself to read and pick up something different, and you'll be surprised at what you find in our local surroundings.
That's so true. I want to thank you so much for joining us and really giving us some really good words of inspiration and some good food for thought today. And I'm hoping we can chat real soon. But Jazakallah so much for joining us with that bubbly personality. And we're hoping to get Joshua on the line next week. Unfortunately, his signal was rather bad, but we'll see how we can sort that out. Thank you so much. And look forward to joining you on that taxi ride once again real soon.
Ameen. Jazakallah so much for having me. And I would love people to follow at Media Inc. on our social media for all the updates and all the information of where to purchase the book. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. All the best, my dear. Take care. Assalamu alaikum.
You too.
And that was Shahista Thokan from Taxi Through Mzansi. Definitely an anthology to look at. We're going to go for a quick break. Stay with us. We'll be back in a sec.